And if we're talking
Yeah.
about emotions again,
Yeah.
the emotion, what they had going into the first call, I just remember I could feel the tension through the phone, the
Mm-hmm.
stress, the anxiety, sleepless nights.
Mm-hmm.
Now having the conversations with them, it's like an elephant's been lifted off their shoulders. Like
Mm.
it's night and day.
Welcome to the Powered by People podcast. I'm Wendy Pauls, and this is the show where we explore the stories and passions behind the professionals making a difference. Join me for real conversations that celebrate the heart behind the hustle, one story at a time. I have a confession to make, Santiago, before I make your introduction. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, let's go. Let's hear it.
I had to ask Chat GPT how to pronounce your last name.
Fair
So
enough.
let's see how it did, okay? So if I'm going by what Chat GPT told me, it said it would be Agudelo. Agudelo.
Dead on.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The English version, at least. Yeah.
Okay, well, tell me the other version.
There's a Spanish version, Agudelo.
Okay. Oh, that sounds better. Yeah, but
But no,
I'm not
you've
gonna try
pronounced it
because
perfectly.
okay, I would
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
perfect.
I
That's
would
perfect. I've
make
heard
fun of
so many
myself.
different ways of my last name being pronounced.
Well,
That's
you
it.
could, I was wondering if it was more like goo. Do you know what I'm saying? Like trying to figure it out. And so yeah, it gave me, it broke it all up and I thought, all right, I'm gonna give that a go.
There you go. It worked.
Perfect.
I'm not sure
So
if it works for all last names. I'm going to give it a shot as well on my end
try
because
it.
it's a handy
I
tool.
know. It's kind of like the dictionary, like it shows you how to say each little part. So
Perfect.
after that, I will give you your brief little bio here, but really this conversation hopefully will really fill this out. This is just to give people a very high level idea of who you are. Meet Santiago Agudelo, your go-to mortgage magician at Valco Financial. With a knack for turning confusing mortgage jargon into simple, understandable advice, Santiago has made it his mission to help clients secure their dream homes without breaking a sweat. How does that sound?
Appreciate that introduction. Very kind words there, Wendy.
Yeah. Have you been called a mortgage magician before?
No, first time.
All right. I think you should take that on.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on my business cards now.
So one other question before we leave your name is Santiago, just as this beautiful like roll off the tongue sound. Have people ever told you you should like be an actor or a starring role in anything with a name like that?
No, I have not actually. I get a lot of compliments because of my name. And the funny thing is, so I'm originally from Colombia, and in Colombia, it's a really popular name. I think it's the most popular name in Colombia. So I get a lot of compliments outside of Colombia about my name and how unique it is. And meanwhile, I go to Colombia and I hear my name everywhere.
And it's like Joe or Bob.
Yeah, yeah, it really is
Okay.
yeah, like Mike. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
fascinating. Now, here, do you have nicknames? Do people call you your full name?
Most people call me my full name.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it is
yeah,
such a nice name, so that's great.
yeah. My mom calls me Santi. That's about it, though.
Santi? That's
Yeah.
cute. That's so cute. So, as I'm thinking about, how people arrived at their career, their job, I can't imagine that mortgages is something that was on your mind when you were a young child. So there's probably a pretty big gap between when you were a boy and you arriving in into mortgages. So can you fill us in a little bit? Like, do you remember what you wanted to be when you were like 5, 6, around that age?
Definitely. Yeah. So when I was young, I wanted to conquer not just the world, like the universe.
Mm,
I wanted to be like quite literally an astronaut.
yeah.
So I wanted to go into Mars and explore different planets, and that was my idea of what I wanted to do when I was older. Like I'm getting off the Earth and I'm going to explore.
No
We talked about
way.
exploring the world, and I'm like, let's
Yeah,
think
yeah.
big here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I quite literally wanted to be an astronaut. That was my little thing when I was young.
Yeah. And so when did that start to change for you? Like how long did you want to be an astronaut?
Thinking about it practically, so again, born in Colombia, there's not too many astronauts or much of a space agency there.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to think about realistically, okay, I'm growing up in Colombia. Realistically, being an astronaut might not be what I'll do. I've always been inclined towards professions like law enforcement,
Mm.
military, and also medicine.
Okay.
So yeah, so growing up, I thought, okay, maybe I'll be in the military as like a medical doctor within the military, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, realized school was okay for me. I was fairly easy for me to get good grades. Not really bragging about it. It's just easy for me to study for exams. But as school got harder and I started seriously considering like classes and getting things like chemistry out of my way in high school so I can get the prerequisites to go to university, realized that I was kind of getting burnt out from school. And if I wanted to get into medical school and become something in that profession, there's a lot of school ahead of me. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll pump the brakes on that idea of going into medicine. Maybe look into that when I'm older and still pursue the idea of getting into the military so I can at least establish something there. And they do have programs where you can go to school within the military. And I thought, okay, long term, something I can do in the long term. And in the meantime, still get my foot in the door with the military.
Mm-hmm.
So I did apply for the military, and it's a regular officer training program specifically where I applied for. So you go to university, graduate, become an officer within the military. And I went through the different stages of the application process where I applied, background checks, interviews, et cetera, physicals, medicals, all that stuff. Just before enrollment, I ruined my back.
Oh,
So I had to kind
yeah.
of quickly pivot to
Mm.
something else because
Mm.
the way my back was working at the time, or not
Yeah.
working at the time, um, going towards that career path was not going to be realistic,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
at least during that time.
I expect that was disappointing for you.
A little bit, yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I figured, okay, get healthy and look at it again in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, plan B, work for a little bit, get exposure with civilian life and do some business, get some jobs, and get healthy, go back to applying in a few years. So I got into real estate at a really young age. I was about
How young is
18,
really young? Okay, 18.
yeah, 18, 19 when I was licensed as a realtor. So I was really young getting into the real estate industry. And I, it was nice. It was challenging being a young realtor.
Mm.
It was very hard to get in front of older demographics and having them trust me
Mm-hmm. Sure.
with something that they've worked so hard to maintain. And now that here's this young kid who's like, I'll sell it for you or I'll help you buy your next house kind of thing. So it was very challenging. But at the same time, I found that because I was young and I had the energy, some people were almost like willing to give me a shot.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I know there's people who are going to challenge me because I'm younger, but there's people who are going to give me opportunity because I'm younger. So that kind of motivated me to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
It was still very challenging. As I'm sure you know, the real estate industry can be very challenging to
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
foster a career. Yeah, especially when young. And then within a couple of years, I got a nice surprise that I was going to be a dad.
Amazing. Mm-hmm.
So things changed again quite
Mm-hmm.
drastically.
Mm.
And I quickly had to realize that I needed to solidify what I was going to do for a
Mm-hmm.
living. Military life might not be the way to go
Mm.
with a young family.
Mm-hmm.
I know it is doable, and there's plenty of servicemen and women out there who have young families, who start families, who get into that already having a family. But for me, I wanted to be a very present dad
Mm-hmm.
and not to dabble too much into the backstory. I've moved around a lot, and I didn't want that to be the experience my family had. So I knew the military would mean that's the kind of lifestyle we'd have to move forward with, and that's not what I wanted. So I figured, all right, we got to scratch that plan and just focus on stability. Real estate, like I said, was hard,
Mm-hmm.
very challenging, and I thought, I'm a young guy. I've got a kid coming. I've got a family to support. I need to figure out some stable income.
Mm-hmm.
and had to really decide whether real estate was going to be the way for me to just dive in and do real estate or figure out other ways to make some cash. So I kept my real estate license for a bit, got into managing a nutrition store because I was big into working out, supplements, et cetera, et cetera. So I managed a nutrition store. From there, I moved on to car sales as well. And then I got into financing vehicles. And between all that, I realized, real estate, if I'm doing all this, means I'm not really passionate about becoming a realtor per se. But I knew I did like the idea of real estate. I was always fascinated with real estate as a subject, as a tool to generate wealth, to generate stability for families, as an investment tool. So real estate I knew was something that I wanted to still be heavily involved in. Finance is something I had a bit of a knack for, having worked already
Mm-hmm.
as a finance manager with dealerships, selling cars, financing them for customers. And sales is something that I loved as well. So I figured, okay, I want to get back into something where I have more flexibility to spend more time with my family, have a potential to level up my income, and kind of have a little bit more of that freedom as well. So I figured, what career matches those boxes where I can still do real estate, I could do finance, and I could do sales? Mortgage brokering just kind of naturally
Mm-hmm.
checked off all those boxes.
Yeah, yeah. So you didn't take the straight path to where you are,
No.
but it does sound like it made sense. Like things kind of fell into place. You made some decisions. What do you love about it, and what is the most challenging about it?
With mortgage brokering, it's I love the idea of helping clients, and I know that sounds really cliche and it's probably the answer everyone's going to give. But I've seen how people were really put into tough spots because they were taken advantage of by the wrong professional. And I've seen how people were really elevated in terms of their financials, in terms of quality of life by dealing with the right professionals. So the motivation for me to become a mortgage broker, become a good one, is the impact you can actually have on families if you do the right thing and if you work hard and have that as your goal. Like, put yourself in the shoes of someone you're trying to help, and actually, what would you do if this was your family? What would you do if you were the client in this situation? How would you want to be treated?
Did you come to that realization because somebody was that for you? Like somebody kind of was in your corner or sticking up for you? How did you figure that out?
Um, Really good question. It was actually in car sales. So obviously, car sales has that stigma where someone's trying
Yeah.
to do like take advantage of you one way or the
Mm-hmm.
other.
Mm-hmm.
Car sales came really easily for me
Okay.
because I love cars. I can talk about cars all day, and I genuinely wanted to find the right product for people.
Hmm.
So and I was really fortunate enough to work at dealerships where I was aligned with management as
Mm-hmm.
well, and they weren't there to tell me which cars to sell. Obviously, we're in business of like they're in the business of making money. It's a dealership, it's a business. They wanted cars sold. But the way that I approached it was, if someone came in looking for a vehicle because theirs is older, breaking down, figure out what their needs are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From their needs, I can figure out what vehicles make sense. And I learned that from a few of the people who were really successful at that dealership I started at. And I kind of modeled that behavior. I had other experiences in the past where I was sold vehicles that were just poor and there was no disclosure, there was nothing. And not that I was taking advantage of, maybe I could have done better due diligence
Mm.
myself, but there was no guidance. It was very transactional.
Mm-hmm.
It was very cold. So I kind of saw those two contrasts and I'm like, I know which direction I want to
Mm.
take
Mm-hmm.
when I'm
Mm-hmm.
offering my services, whether we're selling cars or financing them or even now with mortgages.
Yeah. That sounds very like golden rule, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You want to treat people how you want to be treated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's incredibly simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple concept. We all know it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's easy sometimes to stray away from that or get distracted by the transactional mindset sometimes customers bring with them as well. And
Mm-hmm.
us professionals sometimes get our defenses up.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's if you look at everyone as a human being that has certain needs, it's much easier to help guide them in the right direction.
Hmm. Hmm. You have a son, one, or is that right?
I've got three now.
Three. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew about one and I thought maybe two. I didn't know you have three. Okay. What are their ages?
They're 11, 8, and a baby, 1 year old.
Oh my gosh. So busy. You're very busy. But
Oh
oh
yeah.
my gosh, what great ages and stages.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a lot
fun.
of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all boys as well, so I can relate with them, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think they're into sports, some hockey. Did I see some hockey on online? Yeah.
The 8 year old is hockey obsessed. The
Okay.
11 year old plays soccer,
Mm-hmm.
just house league, very casually.
Mm-hmm.
The 8 year old thinks he's going to be the next Conor McGregor, so
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah.
very serious.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, dad had some big dreams too. So we're allowed to have some big dreams when
Oh
we're
yeah,
young, aren't we? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely,
We know they'll figure out their path and yeah, do something great no matter what. Yeah.
definitely. It's exciting to see that energy in the
Mm.
young kids, and I know I had that
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see it from a father's perspective.
Yeah. How long did you live in Colombia? Like at what age were you when you moved to Canada?
I moved to Canada when I was 11 years old. Yeah, but before that, I lived in the States. I lived in Florida for a couple of years,
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
and before that, obviously Colombia. So
Hmm.
I've moved around. Yeah.
Yeah. Vast life experience. How has that shaped you?
It's been like instrumental to who I am. I'd say.
Yeah. In
Yeah,
what way?
the experiences I gained, perspectives in terms of like life is short. We're not really like trees that are just like boom. Like this is like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really one saying I have is like don't live life by default. So like just because like you're stuck, you're in a situation doesn't mean you're stuck there. You can move yourself, not
Mm.
location wise
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, but you can move yourself out of certain situations. So that's been something that's been ingrained with me just through life lessons, having moved around a fair amount for different reasons, and yeah, those lifestyle changes.
I mean, it sounds like you appreciate some of the experiences and even your response earlier when I asked you about, that big change and the disappointment. And it sounds like you bounced back pretty quickly. Like you were just ready for the next challenge, the next adventure. Does
Yeah,
that
I think that
sound?
upbringing I had moving around
Hmm.
made it easier for me to, when challenges happen or
Mm-hmm.
changes happen, it's like, all right, I guess we're going this way now.
Yeah. Being
Yeah,
adaptable to
for sure.
whatever's going on. Yeah. I could see that really being a strength in the mortgage industry. Like you need to be
100%.
a problem solver. You probably have some clients, I would think, that are pretty emotional at times. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. What is it sometimes like for them, and how do you help them through when it gets kind of emotionally challenging?
Yeah, so as a mortgage broker, and I'm sure you see it as well on your end, we have different hats to wear. Sometimes we're a mortgage broker, a lot of times we are. Sometimes we're therapists. Sometimes we got to be just a friend listening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're counselors and giving some advice on personal matters. It's different hats we have to wear because I deal with such a vast array of different situations. So whether it's someone going through a separation and it's a wife and things are not looking good for what their situation might move forward like,
Mm-hmm.
um, or someone who is in a very fortunate situation where maybe their parents are gifting them a large sum of money and they want to go out and
Mm.
buy this lavish home. So it's really interesting
Yeah.
seeing the contrast in emotions.
Yeah.
And like one call would be one extreme, the call right next to it would be the other extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my experience has allowed me to kind of be able to pivot really quickly between those two and not have them affect me too much.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I can stay grounded and give proper advice and not be caught up too much in the emotions. Still be
Mm.
empathetic without being directed at as well by those emotions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have an ideal type of client you like to work with?
Um, Not really. There's no like ideal person since I deal with all kinds of situations. I would say the ideal client is someone who's open to different options, um, someone who's willing to listen and maybe take some of the advice I could provide.
Hmm.
Someone with an open mind. I'm not saying I would have all the solutions all the time,
Right.
but at least being receptive
Hmm.
to different options. Because sometimes clients come in with a certain product that they want or a certain type of mortgage, or this is what my need is, this is what I need to do,
Hmm.
and the actual solution might differ from that.
Hmm.
So being receptive is kind of the ideal
Yeah.
client. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no situation that I would say is ideal, but having that open mind.
Mm-hmm. Certainly makes it, and you feel more helpful too when you
Definitely.
can provide different solutions and work something out with the client.
Definitely.
Where do your clients typically come from? Like, how do you find them? For example, I know, in what I do, I try to get a lot of repeat and referral and relationship business. Would it be the same for you? Do you advertise? Yeah, where does business come from?
A lot of it's referrals. A lot of it's referrals and repeat business. Most of it is, yeah. I don't have any advertisement out there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I do engage in social media,
Hmm.
but it's mainly for me. It's in case someone does look me up. There's some credibility out there. There's something there. But it's also because I have a lot of my own clients that follow me on social media. I've got referral partners that follow me on social media. I
Mm-hmm.
use it as a tool to educate
Yeah.
people on what's going on. It's not a lead generator for me. But yeah, I have like zero advertising out there. Really, it's just word of mouth and repeat clients right now.
Yeah. It's just you. You are your advertising. Yeah, out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, do you have a favorite like story? So maybe a challenging situation, somebody came to you and you were able to put something together for them?
I've got a few. There's
Okay.
one that we're doing right now,
Okay.
actually. We just got the approval this week. Came to me from a financial advisor that referred these clients over,
Hmm.
and they are expecting triplets for grandkids.
No
A
way.
complete
Wow.
surprise to them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, leading up to this, um, one of the spouses was going through some hardship due to layoffs, low income. The other has variable income, so not stable employment because they're self employed, and accumulated a lot of debt.
Hmm.
So they're in this position where they're thinking, we're going to retire in a couple of years. We want to relax. That unfortunately was becoming a bleak picture. And then they got the news that now they're going to be grandparents to triplets.
Hmm. Okay.
So that prompted them to we gotta figure this out quick
Hmm.
because we can't be carrying this debt load going into our retirement years, and we want to spoil our grandkids.
Hmm.
So there was quite the motivation for them to do something. Um, the amount of debt that they were carrying was substantial. It was in the six figures of unsecured debt between lines of credit, credit cards. There's car payments in there.
Hmm.
So our solution allowed them to save around $2,800 a month and really look at their finances a lot differently.
Hmm.
So we're able to consolidate all this debt, allow for this cash flow where they can just breathe easy.
Hmm.
Things are just falling into place for them this week. There's a new role for one of the partners who works in the acting industry. That's going to help with the income. There's opportunities for the other to allow for more income as well on her end. So everything kind of fell into place this week,
Yeah.
including this consolidation. And the plan with this as well, so it's not just money that's just going to be freed up and they can do whatever they want. Obviously, they're financially less stressed. They have that luxury to go spoil their grandkids now, but they can put a lot of money back into the mortgage and they can
Mm.
pay principal down, which they
Mm.
were not
Hmm.
doing before.
Okay.
They had a
Hmm.
small mortgage, but a lot of outside debt, and they were only making just interest only payments on everything.
Hmm.
So they
Hmm.
were tackling any principal.
Yeah.
This solution allows them to pay down principal a lot more aggressively. And we've got a plan for retirement in the next 5 to 10 years, pay off the mortgage in 5 to 10 years. So it's a really feel good story for me, and it's one of the reasons why it's like, all right, now I know what
Hmm.
I'm doing, I know why I'm doing it. This is one of these situations that I really appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel like you made a real difference.
Definitely,
Yeah. And a
yeah,
long-term difference. And there's a ripple effect to it, right? Because like you said, because the motivation is the grandchildren, like this is going to impact them, which is going to affect their children, grandchildren. So yeah,
definitely.
this is real life. So sometimes we think of things like whatever, mortgage broker, like you think of just the business side, just it's about the transactions, about the numbers, but it's it's about real people and real stories and real situations.
Yeah, and if we're talking
Yeah.
about emotions again,
Yeah.
the emotion, what they had going into the first call, I just remember I could feel the tension through the phone, the
Mhm.
stress, the anxiety, the sleepless nights.
Mhm.
Now having the conversations with them, it's like an elephant's been lifted off their shoulders. Like
Mm.
it's night and day.
Mhm.
And to see that transformation happen and help get them to that
Yeah. Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, while we're on kind of feel good stuff, I know there's been a lot of changes to new products and new things like that in the last little bit. Do you want to highlight some of the things that are your favorite changes?
Yeah, definitely. Late last year, there was a few changes to qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone looking to purchase a property with less than 20% down,
Mm-hmm.
so it'd be an insured mortgage. Before, the limit for the purchase price was $1 million. Now we can look at 1.5 up to 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Before, we were limited to a 25-year amortization for these mortgages. Now, for a first-time home buyer, we can look at a 30-year amortization,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're buying a new build house or a resale house. Anyone who's not a first-time home buyer can still take advantage of these 30-year amortizations as well, with less than 20% down, as long as it's a first, like a new build property. So there's been a lot of changes in that side that I think's help. It's helping a few more people qualify, or at least help them qualify for a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Some are actually getting into the market where previously they were not able to buy anything, at least nothing for the price. Just like some people were like a young family, a young kid, they needed something that had enough space for, let's say, a 3 bedroom. They were only qualifying for a small condo. So this
Okay.
is kind of helping some families actually tap
Mm-hmm.
into
Mm-hmm.
markets where they previously couldn't qualify. The other one that I'm excited about as well is, as of January 15th, you can do an insured refinance on an
Oh,
existing property if
okay.
the goal is to
Mm-hmm.
convert it into a multifamily.
All right.
So if you want to build a fourplex on a current single family home, we've got access to tools now that can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing more multi-generational living arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
topic that's been coming up a lot more often.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will help facilitate some of that movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would, I mean, I know your kids are still on the younger side, but is that something you'd consider down the road to help them, get started?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Just based on where we're like, yeah, we're seeing less young people have that
Mm-hmm.
motivation to own a home, less young
Mm.
people actually be able to
Mm-hmm.
buy a house. Who knows where we'll be in 15,
Mm-hmm.
20 years
Sure.
in terms of incomes relative to home prices. If you look at the past 10, 15 years, and unfortunately, the way that went.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that a lot of people are going to have to consider moving
Mm-hmm.
down the road. It's something I'm considering. Just my background, we grew up where you didn't move out of your house until you were married and had kids, kind of thing. You stayed with mom and dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of my kids staying with me or some arrangement like that.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as they're, well behaved and
Yeah,
they're not
they
giving
help
you too
out.
much lip at that point, right?
Yeah, yeah. As long as I'm not making their bed still.
Exactly. Exactly. You gotta contribute. Um,
Definitely.
Is there anything that if you had a magic wand and could make a change to the way things are done or to what's offered, that you would change if you had that power?
In the mortgage industry
Yeah,
specifically,
in the mortgage
yeah,
industry. Yeah.
I would say the stress test right now.
Okay, say more.
Yeah, so the stress test right now I feel is impacting a lot of people negatively.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a higher interest rate environment.
Mm-hmm.
More likely than not, we're going to see lower interest rates in the
Yep.
near future.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, looking at first-time home buyers looking to purchase their own home and having to qualify them with a 2% stress test on top of what their current interest rate would be
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense. And it's getting a lot of people out of home ownership. So we can get into the topic of, okay, well, if we lifted that stress test, what would happen with home prices if we had more buyers qualifying, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is a major burden on a lot of people being homeowners, and
Mm-hmm.
it's impacting a lot of families new to Canada, young professionals wanting to buy their own property, and it's if I could make that go away, that
Mm-hmm.
would be a huge help for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Would you make it go away entirely or would you structure it differently?
Maybe a common sense approach. Like if we're in a higher interest rate environment, relax it a bit. If we're in a low interest rate environment, different story because rates can go up. And if you're going to renew into a higher interest rate, we have to make sure that you can actually afford to make higher mortgage payments if it came to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
want to go into situations of payment shock on
Mm.
renewal, which some people are seeing right now.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
I'm,
being a responsible approach, common sense approach around it would make a lot of sense.
mhm. Yeah, it made a lot of sense when the rates bottomed out and were ridiculously low, right? Because that was almost an artificial low. But now that they're higher, it's
Yeah,
it creates a barrier, as you mentioned, for so many people who could potentially be getting into the market now
definitely.
while the prices are sitting. I was going to say reasonable, but that's such a strange word. What is reasonable? Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
there's no
know.
reasonable for, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And having the experience of being in real estate 10, 12, 14 years ago, I remember
Mm-hmm.
dealing with home prices here in Kitchener-Waterloo, like a single family bungalow for 250. So like, I feel like one of those older people, like back when I was working in real estate, they were like, "Oh, I bought this for 60,000. Houses are way cheaper." Like they were way cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and incomes were actually at a place where you can, someone working full time,
Mm-hmm.
saving up $20,000, $30,000 could actually buy a single detached house
Yeah. Yeah.
on a single income. Now
Yeah.
it's like you got to pull an arm and a leg to try and qualify for something.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched somebody sent a video graph recently showing the the income versus cost of the house over time, and you
Yeah.
can watch, and they start out and then they just start splitting, right, where
Oh yeah.
the home price is just continuing to climb but incomes are not climbing at that same pace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
it is for sure. Okay. If someone is looking to buy a home right now, or maybe even just, thinking about it. Actually, I have two questions. So first of all, at one point, because sometimes people might think, well, I'm not quite ready. When should someone reach out and start a conversation with you?
If you're even considering buying a house, reach out. Let's chat. Let's see where you're at and see where your goals are
So
and what
earlier,
next steps you
earlier
can take.
rather than later.
For sure. For sure. There's no such thing as too early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've helped people who are buying a house now, and I
Mm-hmm.
first had a conversation with them 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So like there is no too soon to talk about
Mm-hmm.
real
Mm-hmm.
estate, qualifying. Yeah, if that's a thought that you have, I'd say reach out and let's
Mm-hmm.
see how we can get you closer to that. Some
Yeah.
people are closer to buying than they think they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some people are not. And there's people out there who think they can buy and are ready to take that, but actually are not qualified to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes both ways, which is why I'd say just as soon as that's a thought that it's something you want to do, whether it's in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, reach out and we can have a conversation. It's no obligation. I'm not saying let's get a bunch of paperwork in, check credit
Right.
and all that stuff right away.
Yeah.
At least have a conversation and kind of see where that takes us.
Yeah. Because it's my understanding you can help put a plan in place for them.
Definitely.
And they can put those action steps and kind of work on it, which would be motivating.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and homeownership is not easy, as we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Then qualifying these days is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
So the sooner the better in terms of reaching out so we can come up with a game plan and being able to make sure that you're ready for it. And it's not just qualifying either, it's budgeting around it. So if you're a young family and you've got childcare to take care of, if you've got groceries, utilities, clothing the kids, sporting, things like that, let's come up with a budget around it and see if homeownership is something that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And figure out what kind of price points would make sense. And let's go over everything.
Do you have financial like resources, books, podcasts, that sort of thing that you recommend for people when they come to you?
It depends on the person, depends on the individual. But yeah, I have access to a few tools that I use for credit management, a few podcasts, a few people that I listen to that have helped me with some advice. I'd say I don't like to give specific names or specific podcasts because some of the advice may not be tailored for everyone.
Sure.
But there are golden nuggets, and I might send someone like a clip of like what they say that I think applies to that situation.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of material out there, and I've got a bit of an archive and forward to people.
Yeah. There's probably more available now than there ever was that people can find to get help and to educate themselves on even something as basic as budgeting. And I do know too, I used to think there was like one size fits all budgeting, but now there's like tons of ways to approach it and to think about it and to structure it. So yeah, there's a lot of help.
Definitely. And I always tell people, like, don't overcomplicate it. Just because there's a lot of stuff out there doesn't mean like go find the perfect tool to help you.
Yeah.
Get a piece of paper out, get a pen, and start writing. Like one of the best tools I use on my phone is just the notes. And if you look at my budget on my phone, it's literally just an Excel spreadsheet, and I wrote expenses, income. It's very simple. Break it down.
Tracking.
Simply.
Like basically, like people could start by just tracking their spending, right? Just seeing it.
Yep.
It's almost like the food apps when people just start tracking what they're eating, right? And just seeing it. Awareness is the first step to change with any behavior, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Don't overcomplicate it. Just start doing something. Start tracking something.
Yeah, that's
becoming aware of where your money's going is a great place to start if you're thinking about buying a home, or it's just great in general.
So for anybody who is starting to think about purchasing a home, what's one piece of advice that you would shout from the rooftops?
Oh, there's a lot.
You got to pick one. I'm making you pick one. There's lots, but
don't get into too much debt. Yeah, avoid that. I'd say in general, avoid bad debt.
Say more about that. Not everybody knows what the difference between. So just give a quick little summary of the difference between bad debt and good debt.
Cool, perfect. So I'll give the example of someone who's new to Canada.
Okay.
Someone coming to Canada may be told that society like Canada's revolves around debt and credit. And you need to get debt to establish credit, which is true in a sense. I've had people go out and finance new vehicles to establish a credit history, which is okay. But then they come to me and want to qualify for a house, and now they have this $800 a month car payment. That negatively impacts what they qualify.
Right.
Whereas maybe had they gotten a credit card and used it minimally, they would have something showing in their credit report without the monthly liability attached to it if they're used a credit card responsibly. So there's definitely a differentiation in terms of what's good debt, what's bad debt. I'm not saying credit cards are good debt, but it's a better debt to have when it comes to building a credit history, as long as you can manage it responsibly. Yeah, debt is one of the biggest things I see that kills mortgage applications. And it's not because people are irresponsible with debt. It's just the way things are now.
Yeah.
A average car payment is over $700 a month now.
Wow.
So it's very
Hmm.
easy for someone
Yeah.
to be in a situation where debt unfortunately negatively impacts what they qualify for if they're looking to buy a house.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's something I'd want to just raise a lot of awareness of. If you're looking to buy a house, if you're looking, if that's a thought,
Hmm.
be aware of debt, because I see it negatively impact a lot of applications, unfortunately. Income
Hmm.
is another one. Um, Only so much you can do realistically with income in certain situations. But debt, I think, um, used responsibly or with better control or better forethought, could be something people could avoid or at least better structure.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good. It's always good advice watching debt. Um, okay, before we go into, I have some rapid fire questions for
Hmm.
fun.
Nice.
Before we go there, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important if somebody's listening, that you want to talk about?
We covered a lot of good topics here. In terms of, like, from my point of view as a mortgage professional, income is another piece that I see a lot of people not struggle with, but I know it's difficult right now with the way the economy is. It's hard to find work. Hard to find solid paying jobs out of university for a lot of young professionals, young people. But sometimes I see people looking forward to buying a house and they don't take their income seriously, in the sense that they may take a trip to Europe for a year, come back 6 months later and want to buy a house, and unfortunately, we don't have the income history to be able to qualify for a mortgage. So I'd say income is something else to consider when it comes to buying a house. And another reason why I tell people is, well, reach out early if you want to qualify for a mortgage, or if that's a thought that you're thinking of buying a house down the line, whether it's now or 5 years down the line. A lot more people are self-employed as well. There's a lot of gig work, and that
Yeah.
takes planning because it's
Yeah.
not easy to qualify for financing
Hmm.
if you're self-employed, if you have variable income, if you write off expenses to minimize your income and minimize your
Yeah.
tax exposure.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of planning when it comes to income sometimes, in from what I see in applicants.
You
So
just made me
that's something
realize,
else.
you made me realize what my magic wand would be. It would be to make it easier for self-employed people to qualify, right?
That's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
good one. Yeah.
Kind of change that. It's I feel like it's a little more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
there we
Banks
go.
are
We
very
each
strict with
have
that.
one. We each have a
Yeah.
wand and we can make
That is a
some
really good
make
one.
some good changes to the industry.
Definitely. I feel
Oh,
like that could help a lot of people as well, because there's a lot
yeah.
of young professionals
Yes.
and like doctors, lawyers who have their own practice making
Mhm.
really good income,
Mhm.
but technically because they're self-employed have to go
Mhm.
through all these hoops to try and qualify.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Realtors is a great example, making really good income, but have to go through all these hoops to qualify
Yep. Yep. And it's
for financing.
bizarre. It's just bizarre. So maybe what we've identified is there is an opportunity here for another way of financing, right? So maybe somebody's listening and they want to come up with provide a solution. There's an opportunity, because there's a lot of people, more than ever probably, that fit under this category, like you're saying, and the traditional way isn't ideal. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think lenders are becoming more aware of it. We're seeing more, like, alternative lenders
Hmm.
offer more solutions. Obviously, then we get into higher pricing, and it's a different category when it comes to qualifying just strictly on business income. I don't want to get into that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but I'm seeing that's a conversation that's coming up with more lenders, and more conversation about opening up flexibility there.
Great. i'm
So
I'm glad.
it's tricky because Canada is so regulated when it comes to mortgages,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
banks are so conservative when it comes to lending.
Hmm.
Obviously, it's great because it keeps the economy stable from a lending perspective. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have issues like the '08 financial crisis in the US caused by mortgage lending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Canada doesn't see a lot of defaults on mortgages or foreclosures compared to a lot of countries
Mm-hmm.
because it's so conservative. But at the same time, it's a lot of people who should qualify that are unfortunately just left aside.
Mm-hmm. That's a great reminder, though, because sometimes it can be we're just focusing on the downside, the frustrations of, the application process and all of that. But there is a strong upside, right, to that.
Definitely.
So, yeah,
Definitely.
good to be reminded of that. All right, are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Okay.
Yeah, not by choice though.
Okay, you've become one.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
The little baby likes to wake me up at 5 in the morning. Yeah. So
Later you got to show me a pic. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
If you could teleport anywhere right now, where would you go?
Colombia.
Would
Yeah.
you like visit? Would you visit family, friends?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just visit my
Yeah.
family over there. Yeah.
Can I teleport with you? I've never been. I'd love to go.
Let's go. Yeah, we can go.
Let's do it. What's a book, podcast, or movie you'd recommend to everyone?
Ooh, that's a good one. For book, I'd say The Magic of Thinking Big.
Mm.
That's a great book. I read it every year.
Yeah. And you get nuggets out every year?
Every year, something new.
I should
Yeah.
revisit it. I have it, but yeah, I don't do it annually. But that's a good reminder. I like that.
It's such a basic, simple book. It goes over really simple concepts that as you're reading, you're like, I know this, but yeah.
I know this, but am I doing it? Am I applying it? Yeah, great. Love it. What's a hidden talent or skill most people don't know about you?
Well, that's a good one. I've got silly ones, like I can blow bubbles with my tongue.
That's great.
I can write with both hands. I'm naturally a left-handed, but I can
Oh.
also write with my right.
Oh. Okay. Only writing, or can you do other things?
Only writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Actually, for hockey, I can use both hands as well
Mm-hmm.
and swinging a baseball. So I'm a little bit ambidextrous, but there's some things that's just I can't grasp.
Okay. So not fully, but partially. I think my
Yeah.
husband has some of those as well, with sports, but not across the board as well. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. If you weren't in your current profession now, what's a job you'd love to try?
That's a good one too. Policing is one. That's always piqued my interest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My
Yeah.
son is on that path right now.
Nice. Good for him.
What's a motto or mantra you live by?
I don't really have one particular one, but life's short is such a simple one,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one I use constantly just to remind myself, life is short. Things
Mm-hmm.
pass.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever things are going really good and things are going really bad, I use it as a bit of a ground. Like things are going really good. Life's short. Enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a stressful situation, life's short. This will pass. Let's find a way to get through this. Not get stuck in it because before you know it, 5 years have gone by and you're kind of stuck in the same place.
Yeah, so true. No, it's a good one. It's short, it's concise, but yeah, it gives you perspective in the moment.
Definitely.
Very, very good. Okay. Before we wrap up, do you have any, seminars, projects, anything coming up, anything that you would like us to let people know about that you want to promote?
Definitely. So I work closely with Tracy Valco, as you know, and her team. And we've got a few events coming up.
Okay.
February 19th, I'll be doing a webinar going over debt consolidation.
Great.
So we're in the mix of putting that. I've got the presentation laid out. I just got to send the invite out to everyone on that. March 9th, there is a mental health gala as well that Tracy is hosting. So look out for information on that one as well.
Yeah, she's very passionate about that work.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah,
So
great.
that's something that I know she's been very busy
Mm,
organizing with the local hospitals,
mm,
Grand River Hospital specifically for that one there. And last year, I think it was close to $70,000 that was raised in
mm,
donations.
great.
There was about 200 people in attendance last year. We're looking to almost double it this year in
Mm,
terms of attendance, and
okay,
we're aiming to hopefully collect more going towards the mental health foundation at the hospital. So it's
fantastic.
going for a great cause.
Yep.
It's a great event, and it's a cause I'm passionate about as well.
Hmm.
And I know Tracy is, and I know a lot of people in the community are very passionate about it. So we're hoping to get a lot of support for that.
Mm, yeah, it's great. Where can people find you? Where's the best place if they want to reach out and either ask you questions or have a conversation?
Yeah, Instagram is a great place.
Okay.
I'm fairly active there. Santiago.agu
Okay.
is my handle there. And yeah, that's a great place to find me there
And
to
what about the
connect.
events? Are the events on your Instagram as well? Okay, wonderful. Okay, yeah, I can put that in the show notes, and we're good to go. Then people can reach out and find you. Thank you for taking the time to share with me, with us today. One of the things that I know about you is that you're genuine, which came really clear in our conversation today. You genuinely want to help people, and that's what this podcast is all about, right? It's the people behind the businesses, behind the work, that are running it, that are driving it. So thanks for the work that you do. Um, Honestly, changing lives.
I appreciate
Much
the
appreciated.
opportunity to speak here, Wendy. Much
Yeah,
appreciated. Thank you.
thanks.